Hey, welcome to another episode of A Dude and His Hobbies. I'm going to do the second part of making the base for Typhus. Really, as I said, it's always really simple. I really just need, well, let me bring out my handy dandy cool toolkit, or the carrying kit. Open it up, and if you remember, I showed you a while ago the little travel kit for the terrain bits. It has the flocking in it, the tufts, the rocks, different things that I need to build a basic terrain base. So that's done. Ta-da! Look at that. All right, I'll put that away. Now that we have that out, open it up. The first part of that is really just putting the rocks on. Now, here's the base itself. I don't remember if I showed you all of this, but when I coated it with the wood putty, basically, Typhus fits in just like that. There's a little notch for him and everything. I could put some blue tack on, to keep him temporarily on the base. But I'm not going to worry about that because I think we got a pretty good outline of where he is. So my next step really is taking some super glue and putting some of those, they're really just cork, but they kind of look like rocks. I mean, this is from, what is it, Battle Painter? These little things. I don't like that large of a rock though, so I'm going to take my X-Acto knife. And since they're just cork, they're really simple to cut. So I'm going to take a little bit and I'm going to just slice that right off. And I got two little bits. Now, you can keep doing this until you get a size and a shape that you really want. But that looks pretty effective. I'm going to put Typhus back on for a second because, yeah, my memory is terrible. And I'm going to figure out a place that I want that rock. I'm going to put it right about there. A little bit of super glue. Said I don't even think this is a patience thing. I am like probably one of the least patient people in the world, so this all works really well. I'm also going to grab that little cutting pad that I got, just because I don't feel like cutting into the silicone that I have on my desktop. I'm just going to keep cutting off of that one bit of cork to get different sizes of rocks. The second one I'm just going to take and glue another bit right there. I don't know what it is, but I really like twos and threes. Yeah, well, it might be the nerd thing with threes and sevens, but I don't like sevens so much. So, threes. Threes are good for me. We'll put another chunk there. I'm going to put Typhus back on his relative position. And all of a sudden, we got some rocks. I think I'm going to add a couple to the backside too, just because it adds to just some texture. It really, you don't even have to do this. This is just something I enjoy. Uh, you know, you'll have to excuse me for saying and all the time, but that's a good space filler. I'm trying to think of what to say next. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I was great at speeches in high school. Yeah, I got laughed at a lot because I call it the jackhammer legs. So let's go cut off another little bit. I'm going to cut this one in half to have a couple smaller bits. If you look in there, there's a lot of smaller ones. And that's where the tweezers come in handy. I can actually kind of grab hold of things rather than my fingers, which really aren't that big, but they just don't fit into everything. Put another one on. Nice thing about this using super glue, I do have tacky glue too, the extra thick PVA basically, that I use a lot for terrain and for basing, but for something this size, I think super glue works just fine. There you are. That is the chunks of rock. Ooh, hey, how exciting. And why did I just try to do that? Let's pay attention to what, excuse me, lid I am putting on which thing. So super glue's away. I will not need this anymore. The only thing that I'll really need now is I like the brown ballast. At times I paint it. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes it just depends on my mood. That brown ballast right here is what I'm going to use next. In that, I will need PVA glue, which, if you remember, I put in a little bottle like that. It's easier to carry around. It's just there. Normally, I have something useful. This will work. Okay, something useful that I can just put there that'll catch all the ballast as it's falling around. I do have a couple older, junkier brushes. This one will work fine. That's a cheapo from Walmart. Really doesn't do so good for, painting fine details, but I do like it for things like this because it's broad. It also works for later on when I get to that point and I show you the brush-on primer that I use. It works really well for that. So let's take a little PVA. Messy. And a little water because it doesn't need to be that thick. Mix it around. I'll take the base and I'll just blip. Yeah, not really. I won't just blip, but I will spread this around. Part of it's also going to be covered with static grass, so you don't need to cover the whole thing in the ballast, but you want to get a good amount of it because it kind of helps offset the rocks, or cork rocks. That is kind of weird, but anyway, so that should be good. That's a good amount. Set that to the side because here's where I get a little messy. I take the ballast, just pinch some dabs out. If you can see that, sort of my arm reaching in front of the camera like that. And I should probably have this over on the other side of me, but let's try left-handed. Oh, look. I'm ambidextrous. Not really. It is kind of weird. I'm very much right dominant. Left hand is like pretty cloddy when I try to do anything with it. But I'll just sprinkle some of that on. Tap it. Then we'll let that set for a little while. Tell you what, while I am doing this, let me clean out my this here. I'm going to go ahead and base Typhus for priming. Really, all I do for that, ta-da, I think I told you that I have a little pop bottle lid. Take a little super glue because he'll snap right off of here when I'm finished. A little super glue on, like that. Attach him, and he is ready as much as I do to paint. Let me bring that into view a little bit. There, really, as soon as the super glue dries, I got a little handle I can hold on to. There's other things that I use. I actually have some medicine bottles. Maybe I should bring that up too. I have a medicine bottle that I'll glue people to the lid on, and it gives me a nice handle. This kind of have to hold on to like that. But sometimes, it's good because I can tip it over, do everything I need with it. So that is him ready to paint. That's the basic base. I'm going to wait until I'm ready to attach Typhus to the base before I add the static grass because it gets all over the place and it looks better if it's coming up around his, like the feet and everything. The rocks, it doesn't really matter so much because, people walk on rocks and they just kind of stand above it and knock the rest of that off. There you go. That's the basic base. I will probably end up painting, well, the rocks you'll see later on, I'll paint gray just to offset some of the brown. And then sometimes I paint the whole thing brown, which really doesn't mean I need this type of ballast. But it all depends on my mood that day. So I'm going to let that go. It's got to dry before I do any painting anyway. And that really is as far as I'm going to go with the base until I'm done painting. And he's ready to go. So the next one will be just me doing the brush on primer that I use. As I said, it was kind of inspired by a friend of mine, Dean's. He used a different medium. It was glass and tile medium, and I can't find that, so I have a different type of medium that I mix with black. It works pretty good. Not quite as straightforward as spray painting, but it's still okay. So until next time, thank you again for watching. Bye.